Cuba's going to be next. Cuba's a mess. It's a failing country, and they're going to be next. Within a short period of time, it's going to fail. And we will be there to help it out.
The war with Iran has put President Trump's pressure campaign against Cuba on the back burner for now. But the country appears to be next on his foreign policy agenda. So far, a U.S.-backed block on oil shipments has pushed Cuba to make the, quote, humanitarian and sovereign gesture of releasing over 2,000 prisoners. Joining me now, Cuban ambassador to the United Nations, Ernesto Soberon Guzman. Thank you, Ambassador, for joining me this afternoon.
Thank you, Antonia, for having us here.
So I want to start with the humanitarian conditions in Cuba. I have family on the island. I know you have family there right now. Just the challenges for them day in and day out to find supplies, to live for much of the day in darkness. They often describe to me feeling like they are living on the brink. Is Cuba on the brink of collapse?
Oh, Antonia, thank you very much for having us here. And as you mentioned, the humanitarian impact of this oil blockade of the U.S. government against Cuba is huge, you know. And when I said it is a huge humanitarian impact, it means that, for example, right now we have 100,000 patients in a waiting list for surgery.
100,000?
100,000, I'm counting. 11,000 of them children. I'm a father. I cannot imagine what those families are suffering when a doctor comes to them, which is what the doctor of Cuba have to do every day, and said, your children needs a surgery, but we have to wait. Not because we don't have doctors, because we have the doctors, we have the nurses, we have the hospital, but because we don't have oil. And if we don't have oil, we don't have electricity. And if we don't have electricity, we don't have the opportunity to make the surgery to your children. And we don't have oil because the U.S. government decided by itself to impose a sanction to third countries if they sell oil to Cuba, because political reason, you know. But we have also 60,000 patients on the undergoing radiotherapy, or we have 3,000 patients on hemodialysis treatments that they need certain level of energy, level of energy, you know. And
are you worried the country will collapse soon?
No, not at all. We are. Where's like collapse, give up, surrender, betray? It's not in the dictionary of the Cuban people. So we are doing a lot of things to avoid the collapse, but the humanitarian impact is there. It's tremendous, not only in the health sector, it is also in the food production. You need oil to produce food. If you don't produce food today because you don't have oil, tomorrow you will not have something to eat, or at least you will have less to eat.
As you say, this is political for the United States.
No doubt.
They've been very clear about that. The statements from the president, from Rubio, have basically been, their argument, right, is you can bring this all to an end by coming to the table with us. And they want, it seems like, two sets of changes. One is a political set of changes. They want to make adjustments to Cuba's leadership. They have said, at least at times, they speak about democratizing the country. People have even floated Rubio in as a potential sort of leader for a period of time, of course. And then there is the other piece, which is economics, business interests in Cuba. There are conversations happening. What can you tell us about what is on the table right now?
I can tell you what we have been saying for many, many years. Cuba is ready to talk with the U.S. about everything except internal affairs. We are ready to have a dialogue with the U.S. based on equal footing, respect of sovereignty, and respect of independence. We are not asking the U.S. government to change their political system, their economic system. No independent or sovereign country will allow a third country to come and tell them you have to change this or that in terms of internal affairs. So we are ready to talk about everything. Our president announced a few weeks ago that we are in a very beginning process of this dialogue of bilateral conversation. We are ready to sit with the U.S., and we already sit with the U.S., to try to define, to establish the difference. Okay, we have this difference. Okay, Now that we know which are our differences, now we are going to work together in terms to resolve those differences.
So was one step toward some kind of agreement or resolution this move to release 2,000 political prisoners? I know that it was described as a sovereign decision in the lead up to Holy Week, but it also seems to be in line with what Rubio has been asking Cuban officials to do. So were you trying to send a signal to the U.S. that you'll offer them something?
During the last 15 years, since 2011, Cuba have granted 5 different processes of pardon, which is a normal process in the judicial system in Cuba. It is an independent decision of Cuba based on what our judicial system established. So sometimes it is also a practice that this pardon coincide with those religious observance of the Holy Week. It is something that also happens in the past.
You're saying it has no connection to the pressure Rubio and Trump have applied?
I'm saying that it's an independent decision. It is not the first time that we took a decision like this, and it is part of the decision that our judicial system permit our government to do time to time. What
can you tell me about what is happening in the dialogue right now? Because I imagine Cubans are watching what's unfolding around the globe. You saw what happened in Venezuela. Mm-hmm. You see what's happened in Iran. We were told there were negotiations. Then there is a surprise attack. So as you conduct conversations, I imagine you're also trying to potentially avoid direct military engagement in Havana.
First of all, we have to be clear that there is no one single reason why U.S. government supposed to make a military aggression against Cuba. There is no one single reason. You know, the whole, most of the public opinion in the U.S., most of the public opinion around the world, they know very well that Cuba doesn't pose a threat to the U.S. government.
Rubio would say that Cuba has allowed China and Russia, adversaries, to become a foothold there in Cuba, and that you do pose a threat. What do you say to that?
Cuba has bilateral relations with China, with Russia, and with the majority of the countries all over around the world. So, but our bilateral relations are conducted based on mutual benefit between Cuba and the third country, but not based to try to pose a threat to a third country like the U.S. So it is not true that the bilateral relation of Cuba with China, with Cuba with Russia, with France, with Italy, with some of the U.S. allies are conducted in order to try to pose a threat to the U.S. Cuban bilateral relations with different countries are conducted in base to get benefit for both parts. And that's what we are looking with the U.S., to try to have a bilateral relation. We have a lot of areas when we can cooperate with the U.S. Migration issues, combating to drug trafficking, business. We had the health cooperation, scientific research cooperation. There are a lot of areas where we have the opportunity as neighbors to cooperate and beneficial for both parts, not only for Cuba, because usually people said bilateral relation within Cuba and the U.S. is only beneficial for Cuba. No, it's beneficial for both parts.
Well, I know that there are many people, but especially people here in this country who have family on the island, eager to see those talks progress so that they do not wake up to war on that island.
And we hope also that something like this don't happen. You know, we have been saying consistently we are ready to talk. We are not looking for any kind of confrontation, and it's simple. We just want to talk based on equal footing. So, any kind of military aggression from the U.S. to Cuba will be the only responsible will be the U.S. government. You know, and we are ready, as you said, we are ready to talk, but also to face a different scenario.
Ambassador Guzman, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.